when it arrived in 2007, I was absolutely awestruck by the power and tried to explain what Twitter could be to people. And they were saying, well, you're just telling people what you had for lunch. I said, no, it could be more than that. And, there was this period, the so-called Arab Spring, and starting in, in Tunisia and then spreading across North Africa and all the way to the Yemen and in Egypt in particular, having this amazing power of people suddenly being able to call corrupt leaders to account, and it seemed wonderful. And then the image I use, the metaphor I use, is waterways. The rivers of Britain are very polluted at the moment. They're full of effluent and so on. The water companies who own them, because they've been nationalised, have polluted them, and you can't swim in them or drink the water, and it's terrible for the landscape. And water is a means of communication as well as a means of pleasure and fulfillment and amenity. And this is what social media I saw as rivers, streams of discourse in which we could speak to each other in unique ways. And in the early days, these waters were pure, and you could swim and you could meet people and you could have fun and you could splash about and you could carry this pleasure through the waterways everywhere. But since they have become, part of the larger capitalism of Silicon Valley and beyond, they have become more and more polluted. Just as in industry the rivers became polluted, now they are contaminated entirely. You wouldn't want your young children swimming in these streams of discourse. They are polluting and contaminating the minds of those who swim in them, and they have become the very opposite of what they were. And this seems to be a rhythm that happens throughout history. It happens to real rivers when Industrial Revolution happens. People are so interested in just making the money, incredible money there is to be made out of grinding out your product, that whatever poison you push into the streams doesn't matter until people start dying. And similarly, when it's a metaphorical river like social media, people are pumping poison into it, and the profits are huger and huger, and we're slowly beginning to understand the terrible consequences.
Grow up reading the works of authors such as Mr. Woodhouse. Have you ever considered lending your expertise to Indian cinema? I'm sure there's a lot that we could learn from your perspective on things.
That's a wonderful question. I mean, Indian cinema obviously is the most thriving cinema in the world, and I did have a period about 15 years ago. I came to India to raise money from Indian film producers to make a film about a great Indian figure, Ramanujan, the mathematician, the Tamil mathematician, a man I've always been deeply fascinated in, probably one of the greatest mathematicians who ever lived, the most naturally gifted mathematician, whose story is a remarkable one. I don't know if you know it, but he came to Cambridge, and he came from from a Brahmin caste, and he had never worn shoes in his life, let alone worn a suit, and he had to arrive in a cold Cambridge at the time of the First World War. Had a most extraordinary relationship with the great mathematician Hardy. Anyway, I wanted to make a film about it. And I went to the palace in Delhi, amazingly, the great Lutyens Palace, to meet the president then, who was an ex-physicist himself and a great admirer. He gave me advice about it, and I met some producers and so on. And in the end, a film was made about called The Man Who Loved Infinity, and I played the part of a clerk who worked and employed Ramanujan, and I filmed in Chennai for a couple of days, a very small role, but Jeremy Irons played Hardy, and Dev Patel played Ramanujan, and it was a good film. I enjoyed it, but it's still a wonderful story to be told. That's the closest I've come, but I'm very, very open to it. You won't get me singing and dancing in a Bollywood epic, I'm afraid. You really wouldn't have the stomach for that. But thank you for the question.